Hey there, welcome to the 17th episode of Attitude Makeover. With me today is the one-of-a-kind Saritha Hegde, who by all inclinations is a true champion of women empowerment everywhere. Saritha was a senior VP at Li and Feung until recently, and she decided to begin her own enterprises titled Not Just Hot, which specializes in gourmet wok and hot sauces, and also the Friday Convent, a professional women's network. If you have a dream of your own that you've been wondering if you should pursue, but you have also been hesitating to take the plunge, then you need to listen to this episode and you need to listen to what she has to say. Saritha talks about some of the challenges that you are likely to go through when you leave the corporate world and the comfort of a high-paying, successful job and begin something new that isn't as fashionable. Saritha describes the effects that this can have in your personal life and some of the key mindsets required to keep your ambitions alive. I hope you enjoy this conversation.
So actually, let me ask you, what does it mean to be a shallow conversationalist?
So for me, it is like a job.
Right.
To sit and talk to someone who I don't know.
Okay.
And because the day job is all about that,
Yeah.
I don't want to get into conversations itself.
Right.
So it's only hi, hello, where do you stay?
Right,
It's just very
right.
shallow. It's very
superficial, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is, it can't be. So I chose this as a model.
Right.
I could have prepared, there were multiple ways. One was like ask like an interview, prepare the questions and then give it to you beforehand.
So that I'm prepared.
So you're also prepared, I'm also
Yeah.
prepared, and just it is a thing. Then I'm like, that's like the webinars we do.
Right.
And I don't want to do that.
And plus, in your corporate life, you've been through that.
Yeah.
Where there's general, like,
Yeah.
you will not ask those
Yeah.
questions in the
Yeah.
open hall.
Yeah.
We all have been
Yeah.
through it, right? And
So I figured, let me get into conversation. So
Yeah.
first few, it's still like, I want to cover this. Then he pointed out, like, don't have like 15 things you want to cover. If the conversation is getting deeper into one thing, go deeper into that.
Right.
And I think I slowly am getting, I don't think I've got it still,
Yeah.
but I'm slowly getting into that.
But the path to learning is never complete anyway, right?
Yeah.
Everything changes also, no?
Yeah,
Constantly.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I noticed is, like, for example, first video, when I listen to it, I'm like constantly doing After a point when I'm listening to it, I'm like, oh God, that's so irritating.
Right.
And so that day after the recording, he came, that can you?
Yeah, cut it out. Because for me, for Not Just Hot, when I was making these cooking videos, and suddenly you hear yourself speak, which you normally don't, or you hear yourself say certain expressions, because you never hear yourself actually, because you're involved in the moment of speaking, and then you turn around and you hear yourself, and you're like, who is that?
Yeah,
It's not me, right?
yeah.
And as you said, you have to correct yourself.
And accent also, right? Like, because you're at work,
Yeah.
your accent is very different.
Yes.
And here, because this is a conversation,
Yeah.
and this is it's my conversation with my guest sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's no accent. It's about just being natural self.
Yeah.
So people always come back and say, oh, the accent has changed. I'm like, oh, really? I didn't think of it. Then I realized, there's a difference in accent. In the tonality, everything, right?
I mean, I see it for myself when I make my cooking videos. I have an office voice. Which shouldn't be the case, right? It should be like, it's all about food and love and all that I'm saying, but I'm like, take chicken, put this, put that, like giving orders, not a recipe. So, I can.
I showed one video to Ratna and I said, look, I have this spice here. This is the video. Can we do this? She said, okay, I'll try it.
Yeah, so see? Yeah, that's a start, no? And so for me, it was like also the thing of the science of cooking, not...
But you always enjoyed cooking, didn't you?
No.
Rubbish. Every post of yours was like drool-worthy.
Yeah, that started much later in life. I was born a long time ago, so there is pre-social media life that I have, which is perhaps not known to a lot of people. So in my pre-social media life, I was a typical teenager. So, and my mother was actually, I think when we were 14, decided to go out and start working part-time, which, I think she felt that my dad came from the army background, so we didn't have the kind of money other people had, and she felt that maybe for our future education, being buns, dowry perhaps, who knows, right? I don't know. So, but she felt that she had to add to my father's income, and so she started working, and at that point she was like, okay, like, do help me out, do some cooking. Initially it started with, looking at Milkmaid cartons and, trying to make pizza in your summer vacation, my brother and I having fun with it. But that was just like a little light thing. But otherwise, like, serious cooking was my mother. And, because she wanted me to make like, dal or rice or, some like stuff that, and I was probably 15, 16. So it wasn't like I was very old. There were times I used to burn things because she was not there and hide it up in the attic. So she would never know. She's like, there's some burning smell. I'm like, it is fine. What you mean? Doesn't it taste like good dal? And then 2 months later, she'd find it in the attic.
Oh, my mom used to have this, Raddiwala used to come, right? The newspaper guy. So we used to have newspapers. And I would not eat properly while growing up, and I was very thin. And so she used to give me all this Live 52 and some what is that, cod liver oil, those pills, and chapatis used to be double layered because I used to eat only one chapati. There used to be like 3 chapatis in one.
Right.
And you can't eat that stuff.
Right.
So I used to eat like a bite of it, and the remaining I used to shove it in between these newspapers.
Right.
And they would rot and rot and rot and rot. And she's like a proper clean freak, right? So she'd clean the whole house. And she'd be like, it's still smelling. It's still smelling. Not getting where the smell is. Then this newspaper guy will come. He'd pick it. Madam, uppittu. Madam, dosa. Madam, chapati.
Okay, so I'm not the only one. Yeah, so there's yours is similar story, but mine had to do with my cooking and being on the phone for a long time and forgetting that something was burning. So yeah, so it started from there. And so the basics were there. So to be, to bring it back to what happened there. So I got the basics because my mother is a perfectionist, and so is my dad. So until it was really good, and even my dad, because of love, might say it's nice or whatever, my mom would be like, it's not good enough. I think she's probably complimented me only 5 or 6 times.
They don't compliment.
They think we're an extension of them. So they're like, I don't compliment myself, why should I compliment you?
Yeah.
So this whole Western culture of the individual being paramount is so alien to our culture. True. Where there is a family and that's one, and you're not separate. So I don't praise myself, why should I praise you, right?
Yeah.
But so I can count on my fingers. So for me, that is where the principle came in, the cooking principle came in, right? So that was she put the foundation for that. And then, of course, my love for food. Yeah. And, I think there's also like the love of food. I love food. Like, I really love food. I mean, there's no ways. I can't tell you. Like, at breakfast, when my mother used to give me something, I'd be like, what's for lunch? And she'd be like, just eat whatever. She's trying to do 50,000 things. Or, and if she said something like, I'm going to make some brinjal, because I used to hate brinjal as a child, I'd be like, full depression, I'd be like trying to see whose lunchbox I could sneak some goodies out.
I so remember this,
Yeah. So it was something like that, right? So food has always been a primal point. I mean, people might call it not very intellectual, but to me, I don't care. It's something that drives me, and I'm not going to pretend about it. If it makes me happy, it makes me happy. One doesn't have to, do that only or this only. You can do both and be happy. But food, happy stomach is happy person.
It's the first starting point for anybody.
Yes. So I think that's but like my mother is not so much into food. So for her, if it's just food is like there's bigger philosophies, and I think people who eat well are actually happy people, and people who don't eat well have existential crisis. That's my learning. So generally, I mean, one shouldn't generalize, but because obviously you're thinking like, looking for the meaning of life, which is not there. So, and you're not eating well, and you're not finding the meaning of life. True. So then it's lose, right? Whereas we're like, meaning of life is have good food and chill, and we're having good food and we're
enjoy every bit.
Win-win, exactly. Yes. So I think that was there. So food has been, and my father's a lot like that. So integral part of him loving food, I think I get it from my father.
I want to get into the childhood a little bit because I think you and me have a very unique upbringing.
Right.
because of the background that we come in. We come from Mangalore, which is for my audience, it's a very beautiful coastal town in Karnataka.
Yeah.
And it's got its own authentic food, which is very coconut based, and of course there are a lot more nuances to it. But also, it's a very matriarchy upbringing.
Actually, the thing is matrilineal.
Oh.
So people confuse matriarchy with matrilineal. They're very different.
What is the...
So matrilineal means your lineage goes from the mother to the daughter. Matriarchal means you can, in a patriarchal system, you can have a matriarchal person. It's not a line. For us, the property is inherited through the daughter. So if I don't have a daughter, it goes to my mother's sister's daughter.
Oh, is that what happens?
Yes. The lineage is through the girls only, not through the boys. The boys can come, their wives can come and stay in our ancestral Guttu homes, and they can, have the fruits of the paddy fields or whatever that is, the agricultural produce that we have, until the man is alive. The day the man dies, the 13 days later, the woman with her children has to go back to her mother's house. So the reason being, I think, from what I understand, because my mom, as you know, has done immense research on the subject, is that they feel as women have children that they need food on the table, and a mother's house is always she has a right to it, so she can always come back under any circumstances to her mother's house and provide for her children. So that is the thought behind it, I think. So we are matrilineal.
So I think this I didn't know, by the way. I always thought, and I used to have huge debates.
Actually, an Englishman, that Ben Merton, he told me that, because I used to also go around saying matriarchal. And he then did some research. And then, of course, my mom, meantime, was doing her PhD. So then, I corrected myself. The three communities, there's Khasis in Shillong, and the Nayars in Kerala, and us. We are matrilineal.
So I think there's a privilege to that, right, Saritha?
Yeah.
That, along with having both parents who are working professionals and independent identities of their own, means that you've got a very unique value system as a child itself, right?
Absolutely.
For a lot of my audience who are listeners here, they're either getting into parenthood or already in parenthood.
Right.
The value systems thereby are very unique and very important because that's who we are. We mold ourselves around it, or we completely rediscover it as we grow. But that is the foundation. As someone who can reflect back on your childhood and your upbringing to today, who Saritha is, there's a certain characteristic as a result of this upbringing.
Absolutely.
What are some of those?
I think Jacob, my ex-husband, he always says that you've got the best of both, in the sense that I think I've got, my father's a little lazy, but he's very in the sense his qualities are he's fun-loving, he's happy, he loves people, he can connect with people very easily, and he means it. It's not fake, right? He has no agenda. He loves to give. He's a giving person. He'll trust you, without even you having to prove it. Whereas my mom, on the other hand, doesn't have that quality of trust. She's very, suspicious. She'll take her time. She's like, until you prove you're good, you're not good. But on the other hand, she's got a lot of discipline, commitment. I mean, to do 2 PhDs in her 60s is incredible, 2? Right? Yeah, she's done 2. Wow. In her 60s, right? So, from being an entrepreneur to that. So she's someone, if she takes something on, she's there. I'm a little like my dad, so a little lazy for sure. But I think I also have my mom's quality. Once I hang on to something, then I'm like a dog with a bone. I will hopefully see it through, because I also don't take on anything because of anybody else. I take it because it is important to me. So when it becomes important to you, then it is all about, for you. So you wake up every day and you're excited about it because it's what you want to do. If somebody had put a gun on my head and said, okay, you study this, and I didn't like it, then I'd be terrible. I would be like one evil person, because I'd find ways to avoid it, or I'd lie, or I know that, right? Because I'm smart, so when you're smart, you can also, they always say, lazy people figure out things to do smartly, right? Because you want to do
Bill Gates, I think.
Yeah, and it's true, right? Because if you're lazy, only you like say, how do I do this like quickly and efficiently without having to spend like 10 hours on this, right? And not follow, in a way, break rules, which is when innovation happens. So as much as you have to follow rules, you have to have rule breakers for innovation to happen. Yeah, so for me, I think we were at the question of my parents' quality, so I think that's where I would say.
But that's also a privilege that we start off with, right? I mean, as women especially.
I see, for me, yes, absolutely. Like, when you compare to many people. But I also think there's a lot of it we have to fight for, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, I don't know about your family, but my family is very, very traditional. Even though my dad was in the army, And plus, that was the time, right? You're looking at, like, when I, at least 30 years ago, India was a very, very different place, right? And the world was a different place. We didn't have so much exposure to different things. So where you came from or the community you came from was the most important thing. And you traveled, that identity was yours wherever you traveled, and you took it with you and you were proud of it, and that is what your identity was, especially in the Indian context of casteism and all that, right? And that for me never made sense. So that was something I never identified with, whereas my parents very strongly identified with it, but my question was always like, if you wanted us to be totally blunt, you should have not taken us out of the Guttu houses. You should have left us there, and we would have. But the fact that I could talk to my parents like that, so your point being that, look, they allowed you to question, they allowed you to push back, and when you made choices, they stood by you, which were not easy for them to swallow or understand, or perhaps they will never understand, but they stood by because it was important for their child's happiness. So I think your point being for, new parents or parents that are up now, I think it's to observe your children and observe them and see if it's really important for their happiness, and then stand by them if it is, right? I mean, what else is there in life? They didn't ask to be born, right?
We bought them.
Yeah, you bought them here. So they don't owe you anything. And I think, while you teach them discipline, respect, commitment, and all those things that are important for that child to evolve, like you draw a fence to it, you also give it that freedom to say that, look, and observe it. Like I said, if someone's drawing nicely, you don't like tell them, no, I have a dream of becoming an engineer, so you will become that, right? Your dream is your dream. Too bad. No, really, right? I have these people, I wanted to become a Bharatanatyam dancer. That poor child, too, leg also is not moving the direction and hates it. And you're like trying to make it one Bharatanatyam dance. I mean, that's an art. You have to really be passionate. You have to wake up and, practice and practice.
I can't dance for nuts, okay, by the way. I'm like stiff bones as an individual.
So I wanted to learn Bharatanatyam when I was young. I don't know what happened to me. And then parents were like, bunt girls do. So this is an example. Bunt girls don't dance and all. I don't know what bunt girls do, because there's Aishwarya like dancing away, Shilpa Shetty dancing away now. But, that at that point in time. And then they put me to music classes. And so classical music, Carnatic. So I went for 3 classes. Then that master said, Nimge Ragala, Nimge Roga. Which means you don't have any tune, you only have a disease. But in Kannada, it kind of, it's like poetry the way he said it. So we both said, okay, thank you, bye to each other. So my music career was very, very short-lived. But I have to tell you, it doesn't stop me from singing. Anytime I'm out and I feel like singing, I sing. People have paid me to shut up, and I've taken the money and continued singing.
Reminds me of me learning swimming. I've gone like at least 8 times. Proper teachers, hired proper teachers, not just in India, when I was in the US as well.
Right.
And then they would say, kick, 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 kick. You have to let go and kick, and so you can float, right? I can't let go. And so he said, madam, please. Varala nimge.
So you've been through that. Yeah, but that's fine, right? I mean, you can't be good at everything, right? I mean, so, and the thing is, I think the attitude towards it, it's like, if I can't do it, I can't do it. Like, I'll try my best, but if I can't, too bad. Like, singing was not so much that I wanted to, be a singer and all that. And in my mind anyway, I have a very active imagination. I have won many Grammys. I worn the dresses. So at some point, you're like, fine, if I've done it in my imagination, it's good enough. So, no, true. When you're young, I don't believe in the sun signs and all that, but I'm a Piscean, right? And we're supposed to be very imaginative. That is there.
I thought an Aquarian is like, pointing towards myself. The world dreams of things. What is it? An Aquarian looks at the world or imagines the world 50 years ahead of the rest of the...
Yeah, so you're science fiction. We are talking about art. You're talking about spaceship, Elon Musk, Bitcoin. And
Actually, that's so true, because I love science fiction, right? From the young age, right? That's so
So you're science fiction. I am, river, floating, art, design, plants. I talk to my plants, they talk back to me. Like, that kind of stuff. Very, I mean, live a lot in my imagination, which is why I don't need, too many external things, because you're quite happy there.
Content with...
Yeah, like you won the Oscars and the Grammys. What else is there? Maybe Mars. Once you science fiction, you can tell me what awards are up there.
They've taken what car and all that, right?
Yeah,
the Tesla has gone up to Mars.
Yeah, so I think by dreamer you mean that, and here it means more of a like I said, a creative art.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So when you were actually really climbing the echelons of the fashion industry in India as part of Li and Feung, and at the peak, like I don't think that was
not
the
just
peak.
India actually, even because they wanted me to move to Hong Kong and take on and I was sitting in India was on a global role.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm at that point right now. Like
right.
You took that decision when you were 20 years into the corporate ecosystem. Right?
Yeah.
And it was not like you hit a dead end.
Yeah.
There was much more to it.
Yeah.
And then you just said, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
And I'm there now,
Yeah.
and I'm calling it second innings,
Yeah.
which is why Attitude Makeover came in.
Right.
But it's not an easy decision. There's always a tipping point, something that triggers a decision as this.
I think I think the thing that the tip, there's no question about yourself. The issue becomes your close ones. Because they have, they worry about you. They have seen you. They've seen you do well. They know your career is very, very important to you. They've seen how much you've sacrificed, how committed you are, how much you enjoy it. So their apprehensions perhaps come on to you a bit. And because of which you kind of take your time. I think as far as the decision comes, it's very easy, right? And for me, it was very simple. Rather than, me being unhappy and doing a bad job and asked to go, I'd rather quit while I'm ahead and say, look, I said bye-bye. And in my case, there was always the thing of, 6 months later, both, I had Li and Feung and Tommy Hilfiger were like, come back, we have something. We'll have something for you. It looks like you need a break, because most people think that, right? They don't realize that not all of us in it are for the money or for the power or for what is perceived as success in society. And use the words perceived as success because maybe post-pandemic world, the definition has changed.
A lot.
But when I took that decision, there was complete shock all around. People thought I was mad, which perhaps I am. I am not denying that. But my decision was not mad because I just felt that I had done enough and I needed time for myself. I had missed enough birthdays. I'd lost my dad. I hadn't had time to be with my mom. And just the little things of life, like little joys without having to check my inbox or worry about, post-vacation, what was going to be waiting for me on my desk. Or, on a daily basis, this constant, whether if my boss was calling, whether there was an issue or not, that constant axe over my head, I just wanted it out of the way. And, and then figure out what I want to do. And I was like, fine, it's a chance I take. And, we live in a society where people are very, very interested in what you do because they like to define you. And when you do nothing, then they kind of are taken back because ultimately we live in a tribalistic society. And in a tribalistic society, if you don't play by the rules of the tribe, you're discarded. So success, and especially when you're in a top role like that, you're discarded quite quickly because, suddenly you're like, okay, but it confuses them because you put the mirror to their faces every day on themselves. Are they happy in what they're doing? And it is confusing. And to be fair, I could take this decision because it was my own. I was not cutting my children's pocket money or their education or their house. So it's easier on me to take that decision. Having said that, my father quit the army many years ago and took an early retirement and went. So I guess it's there in the genes of, let's like the whole thing is to like have fun. When it stops being fun, you leave it, right? You don't have to carry it like a dead body on your shoulder, right? Because then you're going to be, you're going to not going to live a full life. So for me, it was that. And I think the other thing was I had full confidence that I would do something that would make me happy. Like, even though the struggle would be there, because nothing comes without a struggle. So I will not tell you that it was easy to come to where I am today, but I was willing to go through that struggle to come out on the other side of the tunnel rather than stick where I was and be in the dark for the rest of my life.
But that also requires, Saritha, for one to know yourself really well.
Yes.
Like, when I started, for example, I don't know where Attitude Makeover will go or lead into.
Right.
But I knew I wanted to do podcasting, and I knew nothing about podcasting. I mean, even now, I'm like learning every day. But that whole belief in, let's take it in the stride. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, but I see it as how I would see it my first day at my job. I didn't know anything about garments.
Yeah.
And there I was. I think the fault lies in the fact that we get old and we think we should know or we ought to know. And that is part of being old. To me, being permanently young is to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to try. I'm willing to learn. And I'm willing to learn from anybody, be it who's AD who's on my right side or, because the subject matter expert is important. Age is not important. Number of years, what money you make, what money you have in your bank balance, what car you drive is not bad. In this room, he's the most qualified person, thereby making him the guru of it.
Yeah.
So to me, and as long as you have that attitude, you're only going to learn from people, right? Because you're open to learning from people. You don't think you know it. And I think I like the fact, because I got tired of the fact, like, in the garment business, it's like I know everything. And it is a curse. Because the growth is also limited in that, right? After a certain level in the field, you're playing politics. And as Plato said, if you don't play politics, you'll be governed by those who are inferior to you.
Correct.
So you have no choice but to play politics. And when you play politics, you don't like yourself. It's a catch-22 situation, because the more senior management you are, the more games there is, and the more greed. Unfortunately, as we know,
it's all about you and yourself.
And you have to, it is about your crew, and you carry them with you, and you give them bonuses and all of that. I didn't want to sign in. I wanted to give it to the best person in the team, and I didn't care if they liked me or didn't like me, because they did the best job. So I was the odd one out. And I think for me, the opportunity to learn was very important, like that I can learn continuously till I die. That for me is very, very important. And so I was like, okay, let me go out there. We'll figure this out. Always the garment business is there to fall back on. And maybe it'll be in a new avatar. I don't know. I'll keep an open mind and I'll go.
Discover new things.
Hopefully.
I've known you from the Friday Convent.
Yes.
I think that's how I met you.
Yes.
I thought that was a beautiful concept, which you really started, about 10 years back?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And actually, if you look at the world now, since I am the visionary part of
Yes.
If you look at the world now, the future seems to be around decentralizing, around communities, whether it is a large organization or a certain interest or a passion. It's all about forming communities. And it's not that easy to form a community. And yet you did this about 10 years back for women, by women. As the Friday Convent. What was that journey like? And this was when you were working in Li and Feung, right? How did the concept start? How did you
I just felt, first of all, I used to see men everywhere, right? And I saw this easy networking between them, like they would always I'll make a call. Oh, okay, this is done, that is done. Some of that community was not, the fact that we have, let's look at the statistics first. India has 20% of only working people. Working people in that cut out. Look at the corporation numbers. You've worked in a corporation. I've worked in a corporation. Leadership roles. It's so minimal. So I was like, I'm sure there must be someone out there who's gone through my journey, whose hand I could hold and help her out in some way or the other. And for me also, the thing was, one was that. Two was your personal issues. When you're working on, the issues are so different, right? Dealing with your mother-in-law. I used to see these girls come to me. I always felt like support was important. You want to get a divorce. You don't want to talk to your friends because, maybe you're even not even sure of it. You're contemplating it. You talk to a friend, the next thing the whole world knows in this culture, right? Most cultures, but here it's even more because other people's businesses, everybody's business here. So... And they'll say, Ellaramane dose tute. So then it becomes, it's very much more difficult for a woman to handle. So I wanted a community where there was trust, that it was holistic. It was a very holistic approach. Now that's a problematic thing to begin with, right? Because when you have a holistic approach to thing, and trust is not, it's not a metric formula. Yeah. You don't have a metric for trust. You don't have a metric. Yes. And, for a community that makes you feel like that. So ours doesn't have it, right? But I was clear that it was something I wanted to build, and we built it, and we were very, very, and using Facebook as a tool, because, so that we had, that was actually very good for us, because otherwise we would not have the network of people, right? Otherwise your neighbor, your friend's friend, and I didn't want that. I didn't want your friend's friend and all this time. Right? I wanted working women, because our challenges are different. I wanted women who want to do something in their life, more than, sitting at home. See, everybody makes choices, and I have nothing against women sitting at home if that's what they want to do. If it's a choice. But if it's not a choice, then it's not fair. Yeah. Everybody should be given choice to do what they want to do. That for me is feminism, right? That you have choice.
True.
You should have a choice. So yeah, so for me that was important, and I had gone through so much struggles, be it my career, or be it, even comments like, oh, why don't you just find a rich man and get married and sit at home? This is from my boss, right? And I was just like, what makes you think I want that for myself? Because the minute you're attractive, that husband finding is the only thing left. Yeah. So, I wanted to create a community for women all through the three verticals were network with each other, support each other, and give back to women. So the whole idea was that for me I felt I was so lucky, because my parents were not for me to work. So I literally had to fight to go to work, because they believed women from our families didn't work, and men did not marry, or families didn't want daughter-in-laws that worked. So I was not given an option. So I really had to fight very hard to go out and work.
Oh, mine was very ulta.
Yeah?
It was it was complete opposite. Right from, I think from when I can recollect, it was very clear. I'm giving you, I'm a single parent, right? So she was like, I'm giving you education.
Oh, she's a single parent.
My dad passed away when I was 3 years old.
Okay, so it's
me, my sister, and my mother. It's only women at home.
Okay.
So she's like, I'm going to give you education. That's the best gift I can give as a
What an parent. Incredible woman. What an incredible woman.
And I will teach you how to plan financially, because she had to survive, and we both had to survive with her. Yeah. And so financial independence was something.
When I hear you speak, I get goosebumps, just makes me so emotional, because I think, and I have a TEDx talk on December 11th, and the subject, they asked me to choose a subject, and I said financial awareness and independence, because both have to be together.
Yes.
Right? And your mother taught you that, right?
Yeah, very early on, right? Like I was telling Akash yesterday, my entire schooling was subsidized. Because she's working, and there's only so much she could have pulled off. But she was very clear, I want to give them the best education, and that's all I can do. Yeah. And then she was very clear, ever in your life, forever, what you have is education that will allow you to survive anywhere in the world. And that's so true. Right? Because, and I've seen her how she plans finances. I've seen her, like if college is coming 5 years later, she's planned ahead, she's taken loans, she's built a house, she's rented it, so that income comes to feed us, as well as pay for my schooling in colleges and all that stuff. So I've always, it's another thing that how I look at money is very different today.
Yeah.
Because of that. But I think the foundation is very strong, and so forever it has been, you will never quit a job, you will always have a job. It has to be, you have to be financially independent. And so
that's how she started, but today she was very upset when I quit, because I think,
same story.
So I think she wanted me to turn around, but I think at that time, like I said, right, the only role, again, I keep, I have to remind you, this is India 30 years ago. Right? It was a different India, truly different India. So for me to marry a bunt boy was the height of like happiness. And I could not see. And I was tall, skinny, and dark. Okay, so 3 strikes against me, because our community, they prefer their women fair and lovely and all that. So
soft spoken.
Yes, and exactly. And the dowry was a huge bit. And my parents, thankfully for me, my parents were against dowry, because they were well read, and that philosophically they were not going to give dowry for me. And that was that. So, I was like sitting at home, and I met this Frenchman, Bruno, and he gave me these books, and suddenly my world expanded. I was like, there's this whole world out there. And I realized my parents' decision was from fear for my future. And at one point it clicked when there was this nearly much older guy who nearly worked out, and I was like, this can't happen. And that's when I was like, I am not going to let my parents' fear rule my future.
Yeah.
I will make mistakes. It'll be my mistakes. I will pay the price for it. I will pay the price for it. I will not pay the price for my parents' mistakes with my life and blame them later. That was not going to be an option for me. So I think that was clear. So from then on, work like really, and I think I was also extremely lucky in hindsight, Saujanya, because I got the field I liked. So I went for a job interview, and I remember she wrote in front of me, she asked me a question, and she wrote no experience. So boldly. But she was a French-Canadian woman, and I was very lucky, Annabelle Larocque. And she taught me everything. And it was like this school of tough knocks. Like, she used to literally throw the email if it was not written correctly. But it put all the discipline. Yeah. So one of the reasons I was successful is because I didn't think like the way. So this whole overpromise, underdeliver was not a part of my DNA. So when people, my customers or, managing the supply chain, when I would really speak clearly, make sure the commitments were kept, keep informing if they could not be kept. I think that, which is why it was one of the reasons, because I saw how we would overpromise and underdeliver, as we see what's going on in the country today. So, that has been something that we love to do, because we think tomorrow we have next life. No. True. I mean, we have many lives, no. So we'll deal with it then. Now we'll make you happy by saying yes, right? But to think it through, right? So I think she brought that quality in me, and I'll always be grateful for that, because it's like I literally had the Western thinking with the Indian roots, so this whole compassion, empathy, we are one, that comes from my Indian side. And I think this whole rational thinking, let's think it through, what's the logic, why are we doing this, is there a better way to do it, critical thinking, all of that is from
the mentors and people that you were associated with at work.
And my reading, my books.
Yeah.
I don't have a TV for 20 years.
Oh, you don't?
I don't have a TV. I read voraciously. I'm a bookworm, and I'm totally into books. Even when people talk about TV shows or Netflix or whatever, I don't even feel it, because I think, like I said, my imagination is very active. So when I read a book, I feel like that orange is not matching the orange in my head in the film. So
no, I know what you're saying, because I always read a book and then go watch a movie, because it sort of then is a reflection of, I didn't think of it this way.
Yeah.
I had visualized it differently when I read the book.
Yeah. So for me, I think so that, but I also think because I lived alone, it was important because I knew that there was a part of my brain that was so dumb that if you put a TV, I'll be watching it with my mouth open. So I was like, don't do this, because if you want to grow and evolve, don't do this. And anyway, when you travel, hotel rooms have enough televisions, and I'd sit with my mouth open and watch. So that happened. But my books are educating my brain has come through my books.
Yeah, I think it's the same for me.
You read a lot?
Yeah, I read a lot. I think I was telling Akash yesterday that I'm always reading.
Right.
I'm always reading. I read a lot of science journals.
She's going to go to space, Akash. I'm telling you. I was like, when she said Elon Musk, I was like, yeah, definitely. That new phone. No, she's already going to buy the phone that works in Mars, and that the cryptocurrency also is going to be working on that phone. You know
the
that.
Government has banned it now. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, we are going to Mars. Government is banning here. I mean, says it all, right? You can't get such a more ironical statement than that. Yeah. So,
I want to come back to the community thing.
Okay.
So there's this, what is that saying? Winston Churchill, I think, said this, you started dwelling, and afterwards a dwelling starts for you. I'm not a big fan of Churchill, because I think this concept, they destroy the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I love his writings.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of wisdom in him.
Absolutely.
And in some ways he saved the world, right?
Yeah. Save the world?
Well, the Second World War and,
Yeah.
I mean,
Of course.
If there was another leader, like I said, I'm also like you, there's a lot of his characteristics I'm not fond of, but he was on top of things when he needed to be, and that cost the Germans the war. Right?
True. The reason I brought that is when you started the community, and I am very intrigued.
Yeah.
I want to go into the depth of that community part of it. There was a vision which was very clear in your head. I want to give back. I want to build a support system. I want to build it on trust. And I remember there was no judgment.
No masks, no judgment.
You told me when I got into the first session, right? And I felt that each one of them sort of lived on that. And even today, I have a network from that first set of conversations and meetings. And I felt it was a little more successful.
Yes.
What are some things that really made it what it finally is?
I would say, so the thing is, it's very interesting you asked me this question, right? To me, I don't believe I made it. I'll tell you why, right? Because my quote is, one swallow doesn't make a summer. Right? True. But Jacob, my ex-husband, he was there through the entire process, and the thing is, the person who's leading it, right? Like, you lead by example. And I think that the fact that they saw that, in the page, I would not accept, I would let anyone speak what they spoke. If there was anything I felt someone was being judgmental, I would call it out. And I kind of moderated in by following the principles of it. And even when we met, the principles were always followed, which kind of kept that place, I would use the word sacred, but kind of sacred, because it is against human, biology, what we are doing, right? We are, this whole envy or this, or, things that we suffer from, which is inherent in all of us. We're trying to overcome it and create a space for ourselves and build something meaningful that will help all of us and others in our society. So that was the fundamental premise of it. So that, I think, for me, the fact that I had gone through this journey and I want to reach out was the sincerity, I would perhaps say. It was sincere. And I think that people connected with the sincerity. And that's how it kind of picked up and had that momentum. And interestingly, you say that, right? Because now because I think where also we lost momentum, because I'm the first to see that where we lost is, perhaps we had something that was a non-membership based thing. And I think we should have just stuck to that format. We shouldn't have had a membership thing. But my struggle was, I didn't want us to become something that was more of a party networking thing only for ourselves. I wanted to be able to help that girl in a village, who was hungry to work, that we found some ways to reach out to her. So that I felt was, we were never, from the first place, we did give money to Vimochana, but I still felt that the rubber hadn't hit the road, like what my vision of TFC was. So the second phase, we hoped to do something which didn't work out, because, and in hindsight, it was a mistake, but hey, look, we learned from our mistakes. But I feel like in the post-pandemic world, if there's anything that makes sense, it's that. Because also what happened was Facebook came into much more of a prominent thing. And suddenly there was all these, people around who were not following our principles. I mean, even today, I have people coming and telling me, we love TFC. Like, it gave me so much. And I know it did, right? We've changed lives, like I always believe in the starfish story. You save that one starfish, it's enough. We are not something great, so we don't have to get carried away by our greatness. So that's good enough. And in TFC, I know that people, they still like, if we have that. But I feel like, where I felt like, also what was happening and this is one of the reasons I quit my job too, the TFC also was struggling. Not struggling, but going through its own challenges. I'm trying to use a corporate jargon, so I'm not doing challenges. I'm not supposed to struggle. We don't have a struggle. So see how the corporate brain took over. But so coming back to that.
Keep switching, no?
No, seriously. See, I'm never corrected. Struggle. So where it was suddenly Facebook. I call it, right? The parties were there. People were giving free food, free this. Again, and everybody was feeling great with the superficiality of it. Not where TFC came from was whether inside are you happy. We were interested in who you're inside. I'm not interested in, what you're wearing, what you're carrying, whatever, right? So I felt that there was too much noise, I call it, in the world. There was a lot of noise, we saw that with the social media taking over. Everything was, influence. I call them influenza, influencers and, this and everything. We didn't know what was real and what was fake.
True.
And it was a constant struggle.
What year was this?
I would say, around 2014, 15, 16, 17. These 4 years I felt was like, it was also like post my dad's accidental death, right? So, then you're like, even more conscious of the, if as much as you believe, you think everyone's going to live forever, and suddenly something
you
like
realize priorities, you realize it's a different perspective you start building.
Exactly. And you've, gone through it much earlier. So for you, and then you try to justify it, you try to rationalize it and all of that. So there's all of that. So I felt like, what were we competing with, or what were we doing? What would our people want? So I didn't even know what the members wanted anymore compared to what I knew very clearly before, right? And I felt, so I was like, I was biding my time. So when I quit my job or this and coming back, so I was like, and I felt that something's got to change. And the pandemic, in a way, I truly believe that we don't change forever, because being humans will come back to, bounce back. But at least some
it'll be a new normal.
Yeah. And also I think there's a percentage of people who will think differently, right? Like who are probably going to be in our boat, and that's what it takes to make change to happen, right? A few of us thinking a certain way and leading the boat that way, and people who are coming to the same boat, and then the boat becomes bigger and bigger, and we become a movement, right? Movement doesn't come by you just thinking it and then it happens because you're so great, So, it takes some work, and it has to be a consciousness that attracts like things. So I think for me, in a post-pandemic world, TFC has much more meaning than ever, and we've events coming up, and we're going to go back to our no membership format. We are working. Donna from Vimochana is starting actually interestingly on 27th of November, her own NGO towards women. So this time I want to work with her from the beginning and to see how we can provide employment or financial independence for women. So that is where I want to take it, because that is the TFC's fundamental give. That's where we want to be. So I want us to sit with her in the beginning and kind of work towards it. So the monies we have will go into that, and then work on how else we can do this, and we can have fundraising independently and give it to her independently later, as we always did before. So we could do something like that. But coming back to our own community, I find much more meaning. I feel like now people know what TFC is, the value of it. Somebody being in the hospital and somebody who doesn't know her landing up there, and because she was from Chandigarh, didn't know anybody, and being there for her, that we created a community like that. Or, and I've had so many people come in, wanting to kill themselves to, problems, and they know I'm there. That doesn't matter, I'm there, because I was alone at one point, and I know what it feels like to have nobody, and I want to be there for that person, and I want our community to be there. So I think post-pandemic, I feel like we're going to come back stronger and go back to the original format, but work on our give back through another agency whose core competency is that, because this is not our core competency, and we are very busy with our lives. So for us to expect to do that and do a good job of it was perhaps a little foolish, but we learn the hard way. But I think in the next phase, to work with people who know human beings, have worked at with these people, and have been able to get delivery from them, I think would be like the community again coming together, right? Our core competency is to, say, network, support each other, fundraise. Theirs is to, get these girls, use the funds we have, and
Taking a quick break from our conversation today, I wanted to quickly talk about our collaboration partner, Hubhopper. This podcast was created on Hubhopper Studio. If you wish to start your own podcast for free, please visit www.hubhopperstudio.com. Hubhopper is India's leading podcast creation platform. Start your podcast with Hubhopper Studio and get your voice heard across platforms like Spotify, Gaana, Google Podcasts, Wink Music, and many more. Click on the link in the episode description or visit hubhopperstudio.com. Thank you, Hubhopper, for the collaboration. And now we go back to our conversation. It's a beautiful concept as well, right? Like I felt, and I think you continue that even in Not So Hot, right? Because it is from
not just hot. We are most definitely hot, I can guarantee.
Words, I tell you, just one word can make such a difference.
Yes, it does.
It's not just hot.
Yeah, not just hot. Yeah. So you're right. I mean, and that vision, right? Because, see, you come from the corporate business world, right? As good as you're as an NGO, and I know many people are going to hate me for saying that from the NGO world, but you've got to be financially independent.
Yeah.
as something. Like, you should not have to put your hand down. So thankfully, I come from the corporate world. So I know how to make money, or I know how to run a P&L, which is important. And I think so, this organic evolution of Not Just Hot, where I truly believe that we want to, for me, it's all about, training women, like upskilling them, even if it's like, I don't care about scale anymore. It's about that meaning and changing people's lives. The fact that we had 3 girls who lost their jobs in the pandemic. They were working for 12 years at a company and they were let go. And we could give them jobs that, with Not Just Hot. So from the beginning, we never saw it as a homemade business. We got our licenses done. We got our trademarking done. And that, I should tell you, right? And you will know this. This is the way you have set this up, Saujanya, because you're not thinking small.
Yeah.
You can't. It's not in you to think small. Because it is just the training you have, and that is why you'll give it the commitment, the finances, all of it, because you're putting money out of your pocket, right? It's that's what you need to do, because it's the first baby. So with Not Just Hot, one was the fact about the women. 2 was the fact that when I was working, I liked eating, as we know by now.
By the way, I think you have a knack with Asian cooking.
Yeah.
Especially your those glass noodle recipes you cook next time, and you don't invite me or you don't give me a heads up. Forget invite. Just tomorrow this is happening.
You're close by now, so it's easy. So I'll just be like, Bala. Yeah, so for me, I think the fact that I missed it, right? I'm like, okay, now say for example, we're at 7 p.m. now. You've had a long day. You've interviewed 5 fools like me, and you're done. Your head is like, you don't want to see another human being, and you want to get a good meal. You don't want, we're at an age where we can't eat everything and feel good about ourselves, because your body rebels because of the abuse we've put it through on all the years of travel and eating whatever. So you want to eat something healthy, something tasty, and not order it in, and cook for yourself as relaxing. Then that's it. You just basically... So I missed it. I was like, I want something that's made with very good quality products. We can put together, either if I want to make a really nice, elaborate meal, I can do it. If I want to make something very, very light, I can do it. I can play with it. Like, it's a playground for me. I used to miss that, right? So I was like, okay, then if you miss it, then create it, right? That's an opportunity right there. And my mother, interestingly, when she was... I call her Mothership.
I was going to come to that.
I call Battleship quietly.
I can relate with it, because I think my mom is like that. Yeah? There are 2 personas.
Yeah.
There's this persona of kindness, and I look up to her for who she is and what her thought processes are. And there's this other persona I've still struggle to understand sometimes.
Right.
What? What did you just say?
Yeah. So she, when she was, when my training started on cooking. So coming back to where we started, and so my father being, the patriarchal man he is, because that's how men are usually. That again, 30 years ago, India, most of our fathers were like that. Though my father before he passed away became a fierce feminist. So thanks to who. But yeah, so she had to make curries and all of that, right? And she had to do shortcuts, because obviously our mango and spices, you have to roast it every day, and you have to grind it. And
our fridge used to be full of these boxes for a week.
Yeah.
She's cooked.
Yeah. So my mom devised this special mixes where my father could not tell the difference. He thought she ground and did everything fresh, but she'd actually made this, the Mothership's meat seafood wet spice mix, or her sambar mix, or her fish mix, was something you could use, and my father could not tell. And he was like, like that, how they say, like they won't say it's good, they'll say this is not like my mother's. So, which means my mother, all the tentacles that were always silent would come out, So yeah, so I think so she had already started it in a way. She had already started Not Just Hot to make working women's lives easy. So I just took it off from there, and I put the Asian products and the European products. So that's why the hashtag is Indian Soul Global Nomad, in the sense, because I traveled after I quit my job. I went around the world. I ate. And I learned and somewhere, but I still didn't have this idea. So I used to always have this really hot chilies. I like hot food. and they were super hot. So, when you're sitting in a formal dinner in Europe or something, if you put chili flakes, they'll give you dirty looks. So I started with chili flakes. They're very little. So they look like they're little, but they're potent. So I've had fun at many a man's expense because they thought they could beat me at the chili eating. But yeah, so I used to always used to call it the traveling chilies, and the Sri Lankans used to be always fond of me, not because of anything. At lunchtime, they sit next to me, only because I had these chilies. And so it was always there. So everybody who knew me knew that there was that chili. So that also was our first product. So we already had 4 products in the mix. And then my Asian stuff. And I just then took off. And in the middle of the pandemic, I was like, this is an opportunity. The noise is not there. There is no noise. So, and it was just one person because it was a lockdown. So I was doing the shopping, cutting, chopping, cooking, dunzo, accounts, everything. And hard work. It was really hard because it's physical labor, and I'm not a spring chicken anymore. No spring. I am fall autumn chicken. So autumn chicken was busy.
Winter chicken.
Winter chicken. Yeah, I still have one more innings left. Okay. What, AD? So here I was, cutting, chopping lemongrass, cooking, stirring the pot and making it.
But I used to drool watching those videos. I mean, this was like
in the
torture.
Middle of the yeah.
Because food was like...
that was the whole intention. To make you buy.
It worked. It really worked.
So I was like, look, it's easy. I'm showing you how to do it. The recipes are here. Don't fret. Ask me questions. Let's have fun with it. So I saw it as a prototype. We all, I'm sure this, the gig, right? So I was like, we'll do this as a prototype, even though we set the company. Worst case, I'll say it didn't work, right? Yeah. But at least I have tried. And so there we are. Then Shanti joined in, and as this is the rest is history, we moved to our new 800 square feet office. I'm very proud of.
Congratulations.
Yeah, on the 3rd of December. For Not Just Hot, because we were working out of my place because, through the lockdowns and all that. Yeah. And yet, and the funny thing is, Saujanya, when, not that it was my money or somebody else's money, I never thought, because I ran a really tight ship even when I was working at Tommy, and PNL was one of the best in the world. The fact was you were bringing meaning, and that you were doing something that was meaning to you, to other people, to your customers, right? Like that I have so many customers saying, thank you so much. Our life is so easy and so flavorful. We just put a spoon of that sauce and we are done, at least that, even if you're getting on hot and sour soup, you put one little, this soup sauce or that soup. And I think that was the first bit. Then for me to do, wake up every day, say, I'll shoot this, and I'm going to cook this, and I'm going to eat it, and I'm going to shoot it. So glass noodles, so it's the mood for that. So I could cook what I want to eat and then shoot it and put it out there.
But that also means it's not like you knew how to shoot and do all of this. So it's like trial and error. You went through that journey.
Absolutely.
Right?
Even Instagram, right? Yeah. Now we're going to hire somebody for social media. But Instagram for me was all organic, and word of mouth, and, and some word was also, people were like, you will love this, okay? So one of, men always tend to give you advice when you don't ask, especially, and they call you and give you advice, and they give you advice, even though they have not achieved much in life, and they will still think they'll give you advice. So I had, and there are men I will listen to who give you really good advice, okay? Like Jacob had very good advice, okay? So anyway, so this person called me up and he said, Saritha, I like the flavor of your sauces, but I think you need to tone it down. So I said, look, I haven't toned myself down in 50 years of my life, and I'm not going to start with my sauces. If you can't deal with it, don't have it. It's meant for people like me. Right? Because there's enough not hot stuff. See, I don't like masalas. For me, it was just that I wanted heat, like the Asian kind of heat. Where you eat with fresh vegetables and you play with other things. But I didn't want masalas or anything else. So that's it, right? So this is the product. Either we have an audience for it or we don't. And we'll expand, because we also, Edo's tomato sauce, for example, is 0 chilies. So it's not like everything. That's why I said not just hot. We have products with 0 chilies. Oh. From the beginning.
No, I said, not because of the tomato sauce.
Yeah.
But for me, I thought there was a pun intended in...
Yes, there is.
Right?
Yes.
In the name itself.
In the name itself. It's the way women are perceived. Through your career, why don't you get married and, settle down because you have a face whatever, or it and sauces and more, right?
Yeah.
More also stood for, we don't have just sauces, but more as in the vision for NJH, which is for us, upskilling women. Eventually my dream is to take employment back to the villages for women, for girls, right? Like that with NJH, we really, because that is where the produce lies, that for us to have our setup there makes sense. We will have a marketing office here, but that is my dream, and let's see how that pans out. Everything has to come. There's many moving parts in these kind of things, but yeah, we're working towards it. So sauces and more is also stands for more, not just hot. But you're right. So there's a nameplate there, and and I came up with a name, and I remember because my friend of mine was like, maybe you should go to an agency, and he was like, he laughed at me and he said, nobody's going to remember this name. Even the millennials will forget it in 6 months. There we are, year and a half later.
It's also brand building, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Because see, I come from that. And I think Jacob, he gave me the best piece of advice. A man, but this time I asked for advice and he gave me a great piece of advice. He said, Saritha, you've traveled around the world, you have exposure, you know this game. For the last 22 years of your life, you've been playing this game. You go to somebody here, it's not a fair ask. They don't have the exposure you have. They don't have the design sensibility you have. They don't have the staying power. See, for me, if sales are low in a day, I don't fret. I'm like, yeah, sure, it'll be low today, it'll be up tomorrow. We have that staying power because we come from that, corporate training brain, who I am as a person too. I'm like, if I believe in something, I won't give up on it so easily, right? Even TFC.
Figure out new ways.
We'll figure out. We will let it stay. We will not go and, buy a fancy building, but we will let it pause.
Yeah.
But it will come, there will something that will come out of the pause. There will be something that will come out of it. So that was always there for me, right? So I think with Not Just Hot, somewhere what I couldn't do in TFC, which is to create employment for girls, which we might do through, the new Vimochana, new wing of, through Donna. I see it through Not Just Hot.
So in Not Just Hot, your partner in the business is your mothership.
Yes.
How's that working out?
That, she also ran a business of her own. So my mother's, and she's won awards from the Karnataka government, Association of Women Entrepreneurs, Awake Award. So she's, and honestly, she was really good at it. My father came and joined her in the business and she had to, it shut. That was I'm not lying, seriously. My father must be looking from up and saying, Maryadi but that is the truth. So my mother ran it very efficiently, and then he came in and she kind of backed off, saying that the marriage will get into trouble because you know how it is, right? And so she has that. So one of the first things that happened, when in the lockdown, and I, when people saw me cook all this food and all that, they were like, why don't you do food? Why don't you do? I had a lot of pressure. So I said to her, Mummy, Malpoda, and should I do it one day? She said, no, that's not you. You'll get tired, you'll get exhausted, you'll dump the whole thing. You stick to what your core competence is, which is products to help you cook well, right? So that's it. Do not move from that. And I think that was the best piece of advice, because true. It's, I cannot cook, and I would not be able to do that. Like we do with Not Just Hot now. We've had 2 events. We had for the COVID relief, we had a fundraiser where I cooked. So that I'm happy to do because it's for a community, right? So we actually raised about 45,000 rupees for just one meal, that we made and gave. And then we did it for puppies too. So for I forget, the Precious Paws Foundation with the picnic company, with Bhavna and Shweta Gupta. We had a picnic where I cooked, and they set up the whole gorgeous picnic with puppies and everything, and the money we raised, we gave it. So we also want to collaborate with people like that, because to build a community you need. True. Even in our new space, Saujanya, we want to have, events there's more community building. So we'll put food on the table for free. We can come and have ideas about cleaning up a park, or, small little things that we can do and get to know each other and hang out.
I think that's what what stuck around for me about TFC is, I think this is at least 9 years back, Saritha. I remember that beautiful garden in Indiranagar on the terrace. Yeah. We had these sessions, right, where you had guests who would come and talk about various aspects of running a business. Yeah. Yes. Right, and I thought that was very, back then, for someone like me who was still in the corporate world and probably the mid career journey, it was very insightful to see a couple of things. One is the whole power of coming together.
Yes.
And the power of just meeting people from a diverse background, because it was really diverse.
Yes.
Right? And then the learning process as well. And the learning was very informal, and yet it was like very thorough. The guests, the speakers who were coming in were really,
articulate. They knew their topic.
And they knew they've gone through a journey. And it's not
candid.
Yes, I was just going to say, it was not like a very polished, this is what I've done and I've achieved, but also the nuances of where you could falter, how to avoid some of these. And I really thought that was at the core of some of these sessions that I attended.
Absolutely. And we'll continue. Our next session is going to be about menopause, because that's a topic it's not discussed socially. And I mean, when I told my mother, or when I complained to my mother, she says, "Oh, we all went through it and we never complained." I'm like, "Yeah, you never complained, but we know what we went through when you went through, right?" So
so true. That's so bloody true. And that is when we were teenagers.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
right?
like, okay, what is happening here?
Yeah, exactly. So, and so we don't want to be that person. So we are trying to correct that about ourselves and other people. And so therefore we are trying to do this, right? So we're having a workshop on that, and, with the doctor involved, and how to manage and how to be there and how to have a support system around it. Because, your brain actually changes. There's a TED talk by this doctor, Italian doctor, and she showed the brain pattern, right? Obviously the hormones are going off and your happy hormone is gone. And then they're like, "Why do you look so angry inside?" I'm like, "Hello, what will happen if you're this is what, so to work with what we have, I think. So, I'm quite excited. The event's on 2nd of December, and the same intimate, candid, the thing that we have, we'll continue with it. So I'm actually quite excited for the next, to see the TFC ahead. Because I also have time. I have much more learning now. Because I not just taught is kind of running its own way. So I can, and plus I feel better about the fact that we are giving now to greater causes, and even with not just hot, somewhere that commercial line, right, where we're like, for me, I would see it as like I'm setting up an organization like TFC, not just hot. Ideally, I would see it like tomorrow it becoming a place, because two of the people who have really, really inspired me for this is one is Dr. Verghese from Amul, and then Dr. Mohammed Yunus, Grameen Bank. I love the way how they took a problem in two countries, that were really backward years ago, and made it the biggest success stories that you can't even think of replicating anywhere in the world. Just think of that. Dr. Verghese Kirin was one of us. He lived in a city. He wanted driving posh cars and girlfriends and drinking, and he was sent to a dry state, and he thought he was going to be there for 1 year. And he ended up changing millions of women's lives, right? And how, look at Amul today, right? What it is, So he's always been an inspiration, because by making women and putting that money in their hand, he just...
You change, right? Yeah.
And Mohammed Yunus with his microloans with the Grameen Bank. So both of them. That's why I call myself a social entrepreneur now, because money is not the objective. Of course, we're going to make money with NGH, no doubt about it. Because if we don't make money, for me, a social enterprise is Amul makes money, Grameen Bank paid money, and that's how they could sustain and grow and keep it.
One of the guests that I had was, I think, another 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now, we will be releasing that episode. Was Vivek. So he is building something similar, the concept of, and I'm very intrigued by the community thing. And for me, my closest that I have seen was TFC, which is why I was really eager to have this conversation as well. So what he's doing is he's taking art. He's an animator.
Okay.
So he teaches animation to students.
Right.
And money comes from there, just like not just hot. Money comes from there.
Yeah.
But then I'm building a community that is sustainable and that can grow.
Yeah.
And so we feed on each other.
Yeah.
And it is a continuous process.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's exactly. That's my learning too, that you need this, and I needed to be independent, right? I needed to not be, because democracy doesn't work sometimes in our culture. I hope someone up there is not listening.
Hashtag controversy.
No, but you know what I'm saying?
I agree with you.
You know what I'm saying? Not in terms of what the free press and all of that, but sometimes you've got to say, okay, I listen to everybody, but this is the decision decision that I take, right? So you've got to have that until it comes to a certain, level. See, also one has to be very careful with these things, right? Because if you look at both Dr. Verghese and Muhammad Yunus, their end is not so, because I think they can't give up something that they've built. So I think the challenge I'm no different from them. We're all human and fallible.
And Anglo-Indians, it's very hard to let go. So.
Yeah. So, so I think for me that is something. Not that we've built anything that great, but one has to think of these things. Like, I would like to start right now saying that this is not yours, this is community, this is where it is. You need to look at somebody who you could, like from day one, look at somebody who would be running this tomorrow. Train them from beginning rather than set them up for failure and then say, I'm needed. That's not necessary. Thankfully, I'm starting much older, right? So, I also want to have fun and go on motorcycle rides. So, I think
that's another. So, bike riding.
Yeah, I don't now, much more pillion now. But
is it?
Yeah. Earlier I did, but now much more pillion.
So you still have the Triumph or?
No. So now Jacob has got one. So I'm going on a trip with him in December. We're doing Shimoga, Goa, Mangalore, Wayanad, Mysore, Bangalore.
That's what, like 1,500, 2,000 kilometers.
So it's funny, right? Because he's going to be 60. I'm 51. So that's 101 years on that bike. Not bad for 101 years. Century
but
plus
I think
one.
Triumph should actually do one thing, like video or thing of this.
Yeah. So for us, I mean, like, I want to have fun. So for me, because, in the corporate world, your mind, like, I had a lot of fun. It's not like I didn't. If you ask anybody in my office, they're like, this girl had the most amount of fun. But I don't want to stop. So for me, but now I want to have more because my mind space is free. So work is fun, which is good. But I also have my other interests, which is like this and traveling. And now, also, like recipes and food. Maybe one day I'll have a museum of food because I truly believe that, our food is so spectacular in our subcontinent. Not because I'm Indian, but not this butter chicken. Sorry, no offense, men. But, that's like the standardization I don't like. But if you go to like little villages, what they eat, the little, seasonal produce that they eat. I mean, like, I'm surprised every time I go to Mangalore, even though I've been there, the things I find, it's just like that. I found this little, cucumber which only grows in Malnad, and they make like a really nice sweet dosa out of it, which is not too sweet, which I had never known, right? So I think to kind of document it, and Orhan Pamuk made the Museum of Love, and I'll make Museum of Food. And I'll be sitting and eating. Always plan is about food.
So I think this time when we went to Bijapur for the wedding that I was talking about, we discovered this gunpowder is all around, right? Yeah. But they had a peanut-based gunpowder and different types. Yeah.
Okay.
You want?
I want.
And noodles.
See, you are a part of TFC. You should never ask, what can you give?
No. Noodles.
You should say, I will
5
give
days
first.
Noodles, different dishes.
We need 80 in the middle. Eddie's like, I want both. Done deal.
So I think what I discovered was the local food is unique as well as very custom for that.
Yes.
What grows there.
Yeah,
and things
peanuts,
like that,
chilies.
right?
Yeah.
Jola roti.
Yeah.
And there's no oil at all.
Yeah,
I mean, it's all, but it's so healthy and so delicious.
Yeah. And the oil probably comes from peanuts, right? Because it's natural, which is even better, right? Than heating it up and taking the oil out. Yeah, I think, so for me, like, these stories excite me. I love cooking with firewood, and, looking at some, getting some land outside, I mean, even on my terrace, I have like things growing like crazy. And so going more towards nature. It's called, I think in Hinduism, there's a concept. You have 25 years of grahastha. Then you have, you have brahmacharya first, 25 years. That is, you're studying. Then you have grahastha. Grahastha is to manage a household. Household. You manage a household. Women are, the Vedas were much more not like
balanced.
Not like what we hear. And then
true though, very true.
The third was the Vanaprastha, where you went to the forest, which means, so funnily, when you're going through your menopause, or and men go through menopause, so the male menopause is there, or when you go through, like, you're kind of dealing with the fact that you are, see, when you're in 20s and you're too busy living, you don't think of death, or when it's coming, or you're not lost your parents yet in most cases. So 50s is where you start, those things, your parents start dying or people around you, they start passing away, and your death becomes quite close. And so that 100% is when you're in the forest and the trees, you just, those things, they're natural healers. So which is why it made sense to be there. And you let your children take charge. Right? Because they had to become independent and you had to be out of there. Otherwise, you would be like,
When does Indraprastha come?
Indraprastha? No, there's no Indraprastha. Vanaprastha, and then there is sannyasi. Then you go and die off in the forest and birds and animals eat you.
Alone.
You're born alone. What do you want? The British Army with Churchill?
I walked into that. I've already walked into
She's born alone and she wants Churchill and the whole British Army to take her to her with pomp and glory. And James Blunt singing, because he was in the army, British Army. Can you think of that? He was responsible for tanks, it seems.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
That's why the poetry is so smooth.
What, tanky? No. But yeah, so yes, that's the philosophy. And if you notice it, like, I was always into plants, but I can see that more and more I prefer nature.
Yeah, actually,
people,
I thought I was just graying and, that's me sort of gradually.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, you start observing things around you. You
and puppies,
appreciate
animals.
nature.
Yeah, they kind of bring you more comfort than I always start saying, no, I'm peopled out,
Yeah,
right? And so they give you more comfort, and you don't want to change the world. You're like, I don't, it's what I can do, I'll do, and let it be, let it be, kind of comes to the thing. So I think that is an important aspect of, life, and to tend to accept it, not to fight it.
Yeah.
Like not to fight, phase. Because, see, now when you live in a modern world, suddenly they'll be showing you a 90-year-old auntie weightlifting and say, you can be like her and all that. I'm like, motivation. I'm like, no, I cannot be like her.
I don't want to be.
And I don't want to be, and it's okay, right? She wants to be like this whole, but that's because we live in a bubble, with the social media making us live in a bubble, and we're living in each other's homes, kitchens, living rooms. So it's also nice to get out and yeah.
There's the dichotomy of the real world and the virtual world.
And now with, since you live in the future, how that's going to change. The AI coming in and, all the surgeries, and one day you'll have those, characters they mentioned, devas, right? With Indra as the king, who are half human, half gods, So, see, she knows all this. She's Aquarian.
Dune... She never lets go.
And the thing is, even now, like, even if you'll see me 10 years later, I'll say Aquarius.
They had a rule when we got into the Friday Convent. Any new person, you pinch them. And I'm like, what the hell? Why are you pinching? And everybody would come and pinch, right? I'm like, what the hell
because
is
it
this?
breaks the ice. Otherwise, you'd be like, hi. It's like, no, pinch them.
Everybody would come and pinch you, and it's not in one spot, right? Everybody gets very creative in pinching.
It's usually the
exactly my reaction, Akash, and I was like, what is that?
But it worked, right? It kind of broke the ice.
Because you get to know everybody.
Yeah.
Broke you.
Of course.
No. So you're so fragile. Want to know.
There's hardly any meat in this body.
Yeah, but where we pinched you, there was a lot of meat.
That was the problem as well, right? Like, growing up, I used to be so conscious because I used to go by BTS buses. And I used to have safety pins.
Really?
Because those buses were really...
people like...
They prepare you for the toughest world, I think.
Right.
So when you board the bus, there are so many coming and pushing, pinching. So I used to I also used to do like this. They won't know where it's coming
and
from.
some woman must be thinking some guy's pinching, well, it must be you all the time. Thanks.
Rubbish.
How do you know you're doing like this, like
Idala, don't put it in this show.
If I miss everything else, this is definitely
yeah, this has to go there. Hey, come on, seriously. Yeah, but how armed you were, right? Yeah.
I hate people. I mean, I have a space, right? And I don't like people coming inside that space. And that space is wider than a normal person's space.
Oh, and then you're in a BTS bus.
And then in a BTS bus, right?
In India.
Yeah, and these old men were even creepier fellows,
true.
right?
Yeah.
So I used to always have safety pins.
She knows the position also. See how she's getting back memories coming?
Like, I used to put her in between this.
No, but that's clever of you. You have to take a fence for yourself.
I used to come home and I used to tell my mother this happened. So she used to tell me, try this next time.
Yeah, see,
so it was
protect
like...
yourself,
So when I got pinched by everybody, I was like, oh, what is this?
Some wonderful memories came back.
It's like, no.
But like at first it was like the thing of it broke the ice and then it made you laugh and you just kind of suddenly from saying I don't know anybody, how can I walk into a room full of strangers?
Which is a problem, right? In any community, because there are different kinds of people.
And they know each other and I don't know and it's like you go alone or not. So we just it kind of made it break the ice.
Icebreaker.
And I also wanted people not to hang with people they knew. So I was always say if you're talking to somebody we know, I'll find you, right? So that was also there. It was a lot of fun, like like you said, and it was, I mean, there wasn't anything like that, or there isn't anything like that. I mean, there are other women's organizations. First of all, the fact that we were serious about working, right? Like in the sense we worked. So it wasn't like, husbands are rich and we have an organization that says we're all working but we're actually having meetings. During the week in the afternoons because most working people can't afford to do that, right? So we were really working people. We were really serious about our career and we really supported each other. So I can't wait for 2022 to end. And I feel like the only thing I have to say that will change is I feel like now in my 50s. We'll
50 you crossed or?
50 when? Going to be 52 in March 9.
Congratulations.
So thank you. Yeah. I can't see बाल धूप में सफेद नहीं हुए हैं.
See, I can.
Yeah, you can.
Much younger than you, but I can.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm sure you can, if you want.
No, I don't want. I'm vain. I want to look good as much as I
look
can.
good too.
You look damn good, but that's not the point. That's for me, no?
Let go.
So anyway, so what were we talking about? Yeah, so the thing is what I've decided in the third phase is somewhere men will be a part of TFC too.
I think so.
So I think that's my learning as much as it is, because if I'm going to say
because it's like otherwise Women's Day that we experience in the corporate world, right? You'll have 5 women talking about nuances of work-life balance and support system, and of course things are changing gradually, but then you need more allies. You need more people who like, for me, I feel I wouldn't have been able to do most of what I did in my career if not for a supportive husband like Shamil.
Yeah.
And he cooks, I don't cook. But there's a balance. He's got his strengths and I've got my strengths. He understands and respects that bit. And that's where the balance in the relationship comes. And you need more of men coming out.
And then we need to, like, my point is, right, if I look at it philosophically, if I've complained about the fact that you've kept me out of the table and then to fix it, I go create another table and keep you out of it, how am I different from you?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I think that's where I'm like, you know what? We can't use the same tools. As much as angry I was or I am still, there is a lot of anger because...
But you voice it and you voice it in a different way.
And now that I've done it and I've proven to myself that I can or I will fight for whatever, and my gender is not going to define who I am. I mean, not what I wear, what I do, it is not. It is, I will... be like a girl, it doesn't make any sense to me. So, because the consequences of what? I will not find this or I will not, but I'm happy to live without it. And so coming back to this, so I want to do it in a way where our space remains our space, and we have some events which will have the privacy of the women, but largely involve men who are on our side and create a community together. So that's where I want to go forward and take TFC forward and bring it to the table. And I hope with Not Just Hot we kind of get that in, because that kind of get other people also, other communities who are like us also. So that's the idea. I always let it sink, and I feel like it always comes back with something later. One doesn't have another thing I don't do is I don't feel the need to push for decisions immediately. I can wait. I don't get stressed. I don't get whatever. I'm like, it'll happen. Wait, play the waiting game. When you're younger in your career, you have to take decisions very quickly and not be worried about the consequences and deal with it. When you're older,
you take it easy.
Usually it takes care of itself. Very rarely do you have to really do something. So for me, it'll find its way. Things are happening, things are moving, and even though as much as we say we're boys, like my social media person is a guy, right? So we'll never discriminate in the sense that it's only all women team. That's why when people said it's an all women team, I said please don't attribute such things to us, because if somebody is better, than a girl, and there's a difference of 5 and 10, I would take the guy.
It's the merit.
Because I have to run a business, right? So, but we will be, in terms of our girls, how they're treated, and like for the first time they went out. I realized they never had fun. So first of all, we've gone from 6-day working to 5-day working week now in a year. That was important for me, that they have work-life balance, and we lead the way by saying that. Even for me and for them, because if
you're also working.
Yeah. So I'm not as great as it's not because of greatness. And 2 is also that fact that I saw that they didn't have fun. These girls are working all the time. They go back to homes, they're working. And I was like, no, that's not okay. So for our first year, I took them camping. So we all slept in tents. We cooked with NGH. They eat our products. They live the lifestyle. So from eating typical Indian food now, if you ask my girls, they know every product. Like I've literally trained them for a year to enjoy the NGH lifestyle. Now they're like, we can't live without it. And then for a year, we had an offsite, in the sense we took them to Mangalore and showed them the whole fun to 2-3 days. We cooked with NGH, we lived the NGH lifestyle again. So to, bring fun into their life, into our team's life, is also important.
No, it is, I think, and that's where you start building your next
a foundation.
Right?
So this is why we never expanded. Like Amazon was interested in us, Swiggy, Amazon wanted to use us for Launchpad, but I was like, no, we first set the back end, the supply chain. Customers that we have, we make sure there's no issues. So if you see, we're seamless. We went from WhatsApp now to here, and our deliveries, like I see companies that start and they talk about funding and this, and they're talking big, and we don't even know when it's coming to us. So it's bread, and it's 3 days later we don't have a message, or it's some A was a baguette and B was some bread from some other bakery that they've bought and sent you. Right? So for me that was a no. Like quality, consistency, training my team for customer, enhancement, and also telling them when to say no to a customer and say, we will not give you our stuff. Because I do that. If for me a customer behaves badly with my staff or is not fair, then we're not,
it's not the right customer for us.
Yeah. We're okay with, customer is not everything. I don't believe that also. A well-behaved customer is what we will go the extra mile for, and
so it's also about the transparency and expectations.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
From both sides.
Yeah,
it's not just about customer is king, customer is king.
Yes.
But then I will treat you like a king when you are...
Yeah. And we have value for our product. Ours is a king's product, right? So, so therefore you're having it. Yeah. So neither of us are doing anybody favors here, and we put our blood, sweat, and tears into this to make sure you get it right. So for us, that message of we both deserve each other was very, very strong for me. It was and that's why we're a brand like that. So even in the beginning, if Shanti would forget something, like say you had an order, it was new to her, she'd forget an order, I'd be like, no, immediately done at our cost, and she saw that, and not screaming at mistakes, saying what have we learned, not like if there's a problem, I'm like, it's not personal, but how do we fix it? I don't want to say Saujanya did it or Saritha did it. How did this problem happen in NJH? How are we going to fix it going forward? That's all I need to know. I don't want to know X did it, Y did it, that is, she's bad, I'm good. I don't want any of those things. NJH has a problem. How does NJH fix it? So I think teaching them all of that has been like, and for me, someone taught me that. I'm just paying it forward. So it's not like I'm doing them something great service or whatever. And this is a company, I want to create a company I want to work for.
True.
And so that's where I'm treated fairly. I want equality. I don't believe in ma'am, sir, this, that, whatever. But they are forced to. They call you. That's just that. But I want somewhere where so Shanti knows she can. I said, give me logic, and I'll listen to you.
Yeah.
Don't listen to me because I'm saying that.
On that note, Saritha, I totally enjoyed this. Wish you all the luck with both.
Thank you.
TFC Phase 2 as well as Not Just Hot.
Thank you.
And look forward to more sessions from TFC.
Yeah.
And thank you so much.
Pleasure talking to you. It's been so nice, so easy, as always. And
with you, yes.
Yes, and glass noodles, only if you promise me 50 years from now what the future is going to be.
I can paint a future, sweetheart. That is so easy. But I don't know if I'll survive to... one of the things I told Shamir was... my grandmother lived for close to 100 years. I think at 99, or I don't know if
this is your mom's mom.
Mom's mom. And that lineage is a long life lineage. Right? So I said, I think we'll have to put some money separate
For Mars.
for me. Not forget Mars and all.
I
For
know.
me, because when I get old, I'll need some funds to take care of me.
myself. Yeah, because
Right? And so we'll have to sort of plan it differently.
Yeah.
And can we sort of keep some funds separate? He said, look, your grandmother and your mother had a beautiful lifestyle.
Yeah.
They were not doing junk stuff like you.
You-
I don't think you have
You
that
can-
kind of thing.
But genetics is something else, huh? Genetics is something else. I'll tell you, I've seen it work.
Yeah?
Yeah. Like Jacob's dad is 97 years old.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he has 1 beer and 2 whiskeys every night. And if you let him have, he'll have half the bottle also. So, and still eats. He says, I'll have a light lunch, dinner, puri masala. And if I eat puri masala, I'm dead. So, but good. I mean, God bless. And they're like you said, but he's also right that they were living in different times.
Yeah, the lifestyle is
pollution.
very different, right? Even now, you can see the difference in.
What your
she
mom
works. She works from morning to evening. I mean, she can't sit in one place. She will constantly be moving. I'm the laziest person you can meet in this world.
No, you're not. No, I'm not. Why would I give myself? Hello, look at this. Like ball is given to her, means it's gonna come to me. What? Please keep the ball yourself. Don't put it this side. Let it stay that side. Both this side were good. Okay,
But
good
thank
fun.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
This
you
is such
so
a
much,
pleasure.
Saritha.
I really, this is like time flew.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thanks, Sadie.